Good afternoon. Is your mic on?
Oh, no, it's not on.
Okay, where you from?
Habitat for Humanity.
You from Miami?
No, Habitat for Humanity.
Okay, what state are you in?
Oh, North Carolina.
Now, okay, yeah, okay, good. You're gonna be meeting a lot of people from around the country today, and I know that your organization do a lot of work. So when we get started, I definitely want you to jump in and talk about what you do, man, because y'all a national organization that do a lot of good things.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
How did you hear about us?
I was trying to figure that out right now. I'm like, I just sign up for things because I love learning. So I don't really know where I found out.
Do you know if it was on Facebook, it was an email, or?
Hold on. Let me see if I can remember.
It's not important, but I always try to find out best ways of trying to reach out and share what we do.
If you put it on Facebook, I probably saw it on Facebook.
Yeah, we got it on LinkedIn. We got it on all social media.
Yeah, it was either on Facebook or LinkedIn. One of the two. Those are the two platforms that I'm most engaged in.
Oh yeah, you early. They say the early bird gets it.
Oh no, it's fine. I mean, I just want to make sure that everything works and that I can get in. So, I mean, I know that I'm a little bit early, so.
Good. Well, that's really smart, and that's why I started class early to make sure everything's going to work. Because if you wait for the last minute, it always goes wrong.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So you don't have to wait. You can always come back if you want to, but that decision is up to you. Hold on, we got somebody else coming in that's an early bird like you.
Hold on. Yeah, I just continue to do the work in the background, and then I'll be here for when it starts.
Okay, good to know.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Who's coming in now, and where are you from?
Hey, yeah, Austin Friedman. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. Family Connections is our organization.
Okay, how did you hear about us?
I had a coworker kind of basically sign me up and send me the information, so I'm not super familiar, but I'm glad to be here.
And I'm glad you're here. So no matter what the case is, you're here. Now, these workshops that we give, and you're going to see as the room begin to populate a little bit later. These workshops is attended by people from around the country. The last time I think we had most participants in the workshop was 35 states that came. I'm not sure how many states are going to participate. I know it's going to be at least 15, and it could be possibly up to 25. But it gives an opportunity to see what is the best practices in terms of how to deal with the current atmosphere when it comes to grant writing. Now, what does your nonprofit do?
We kind of primarily focus on early pre-K education.
Okay.
Literacy, play, making sure parents are reading, playing with their kids. Yeah.
There are some substantial cuts that are coming in that field, especially by way of the federal government.
Yep, that is definitely true, and we're seeing that at the state level too. So.
But the good thing you're going to find out in this class is that it's way more money out there other than the government. You have foundations and corporations. In fact, one of the sites I'm going to be talking about is going to be Foundation Center. They have over like 20,000 funders that are tied into their network. Yeah, so we're going to give us some jewels today related to nonprofits and how do you operate in the current atmosphere. We're expecting people from all over the country to come today, as is the case when we give our workshops. It's 2:28. I know I probably won't be starting class to about 235, 238, somewhere like that, in order to make sure we get the greatest number of participants. However, if they're not in by that time, we'll start class, and they can jump in at class as class goes on. Have you ever taken a grant writing course before?
Yeah. I've been a grant writer for a few years now, but I'm always looking for more resources. So.
Oh, if you're a grant writer, and a lot of people that take our class are professional, seasoned grant writers, you're gonna love this. Because even for grant writers, we give you the most recent information. Because in the grant world, things change every day. Every day. And that's why these workshops are critical.
That is very true.
Yeah. So we'll wait until about 2:35, somewhere in that neighborhood, 2:35. 2:35, somewhere 5 or 10 minutes, just to get people to come in, because here's an opportunity for everybody to share who they are and what you do. You never know. You might network with somebody that's in California, somebody that's in Chicago. Y'all might do some joint projects together. So that's another opportunity to give this workshop so you can connect to people that's doing work around the nation. Okay, Jim has just popped in. Jim, when you get in, let us know who you are, where you from. Is your mic on, Jim? So let's let Jim get his mic together. While we're doing that, we're going to invite somebody else to come in. Jim, do you have your mic on mute? Okay, while he's trying to figure out that, let's go to Caroline. Caroline, can you unmute your mic and tell us where you're from?
Yes, I'm from Second Harvest Food Bank in Fayetteville, North Carolina.
Okay, we're getting people all over that's taking place today in this class, as they should be. So we're waiting. I'm waiting for Jim. Jim, where are you from? As we wait for Jim, I'm going to constantly be letting people in. Jim, are you with us? Okay, well, Jim figured it out. Let me share with you that this workshop is going to be broken into 2 sections. Section 1 is going to give for those who want to start a nonprofit. It's going to give you information on that. Somebody else just came in. The second part of the workshop is going to focus on providing participants with the tools, strategies, and framework needed to design, fund, and sustain a high impact initiative. Who just came in? Chris, did you just come in? Okay, we have somebody else coming in. Chris, can you tell us who you are and where you're from?
Recording in progress.
Okay, Chris, where are you from? Okay, we just had somebody else pop in. Sir, Mr. Brown, who are you and where are you from?
Stephen Brown, right here from Tampa Bay.
Tampa, we got people from all over the country that's joining us today. As I was saying earlier, we normally have anywhere from 15 to 25 states to attend our workshop. We're looking for that number today as well, all the way from the south, east, west, north, all over the place. It's going to be coming up here to the workshop today. The time is 2:33. We're going to get started about 2:40. I'm going to give them about 7 minutes to get in the workshop. The beauty of this type of workshop is because we got people from all over the nation. It's an opportunity to network. You might be doing something in Baltimore. You might want to connect with Tampa. Tampa might be doing something in Tampa that Tampa might want to connect with California. California might want to connect to Chicago. So in addition to giving you a wealth of information pertaining to grant writing, this workshop also offers you an opportunity to talk to other people, meet other people. So again, it's 2:34. I'm gonna get folks to 2:40, and if they're not here by 2:40, we're gonna get started. Keep in mind, people are coming from different time zones also. So you're gonna have some people who, they come from like 3 hours early because they come from the time zone. So it might be that case, but we're gonna give them an opportunity to come in. We're gonna give them. Okay, somebody else is coming in. We're going to give them into 2:40. Okay, who just came in? And if you just came in, when you get an opportunity, unplug your mic and tell us who you are and what state you're from. Oh, I see that person's still signing in. So let the person get an opportunity to sign in. Okay, they're in. Okay, who are you? And tell us where you from and what you do. Is it Clarissa? I know I'm messing your name up. Hello? Okay, somebody else is coming in. Let's get that person in. Clarissa, is that your name? Yes, I'm sorry, I messed your name. Where are you from?
I'm from Eugene, Oregon.
Okay, look, we got people from all over in this room tonight. Someone just popped in also. Let that person get in and let that person tell us where they're from. Again, we're going to get started at 2:40. We want an opportunity for people to get in. This will be, and I guarantee, one of the most comprehensive workshops that you've ever taken. Omar, how you doing? Where you from?
Hey, how are you? North Carolina.
Okay. People all over the place are coming tonight, today, afternoon, evening, because we got people coming from all different time zones. So I don't know if it's day or night, depending upon where you are. Welcome to class. We're going to get started about 2:40. Omar, tell us, what does your nonprofit do, or you want to get started? You want to start a nonprofit?
Well, I ended up with this nonprofit by accident.
Okay.
And the person who started it didn't want to continue, so for a while I've been helping out people with their education.
Okay.
So I started an English academy for non-English speakers, and now we developed in Spanish course online. It's totally free. So, with that said, I invested my own money on it. So the person who started this nonprofit actually gave it, assigned it to me or appointed me to it, gave me all the paperwork, and I'm here, brother. I don't know how to operate it. I have no idea. I'm new to this.
You're gonna love this class. Are you gonna love this? I can only say y'all better get some coffee because it's gonna be that in depth. When you leave this class and you go back into the general population, and some of the terms that you're gonna learn in this class, you're gonna throw them off. They're gonna say, "What did you say?" Say, "I took a nonprofit course in order to get my game in to get me better at what I do." Folks, it's 2:38. We're going to give them 2 more minutes. If they're not here in 2 more minutes, guess what? We're going to get started and they can come. But I do know that by the end of class, we would have at least 15 to 20 states to get engaged in this particular workshop. So let's give them 2 more minutes. Anybody else that want to talk about who you are and what your nonprofit do? Now this is going live. So when we go live in front of funders, the people that give the money out. Because a lot of times they tune into my workshop to see who's the newest and latest nonprofits that's out there. So if you want to, just shout out who you are, where you're from, and what you need money for. It's a free of charge. Your opportunity to do that before we get class started. If not, we can just wait and one more minute, and then we can get class started. So whatever you choose. Hey, Chris, where are you from? Okay, we just had somebody else pop in. Sir, Mr. Brown, who are you and where are you from?
Good afternoon, Phelan Brown, right here from Tampa Bay.
Tampa, we got people from all over the country. That's joining us today. As I was saying earlier, we normally have anywhere from 15 to 25 states to attend our workshop. We're looking for that number today as well, all the way from the south, east, west, north, all over the place. It's going to be coming up here to the workshop today. The time is 2:33. We're going to get started about 2:40. I'm going to give them about 7 minutes to get in. The next workshop is going to be broken into 2 sections. The first section, can y'all hear that? Is going
Yes,
all right, thank you. I apologize. I
yes.
thought y'all was hearing it all the time. And how to start a nonprofit, the different documents that you have to prepare at the different levels, from the county to the state to the federal. The second part of the workshop is going to get really intense. In this part of the workshop, participants will be equipped with the tools, strategies, frameworks needed to design, fund, and sustain high-impact initiatives. This is an intense workshop that is so needed in light of the current funding atmosphere. We've had expert grant writers take this class. We've had businesses, individuals, organizations, directors, executives, regular lay people, all across the spectrum take this class. And the one thing they say, and you're going to say it too by the end of this class, it is very intense, comprehensive, and impactful. So there's going to be a lot ahead of us in terms of the information that we will be going over tonight. Very intense. However, you'll be able to digest it because of the format that I've used in order to spoon feed you the information necessary to change the narrative. In addition to that, for those of you who stayed through the workshop, to help you better review this class tonight, I'm going to send you a PowerPoint presentation. Again, folks, this class is going to be really intense. Whether you are just thinking about starting a nonprofit, or whether you have an operating nonprofit, this workshop is going to take you to the next level. Let's get started. Oops. Legal asks me to do this every time I do a workshop because of what's known as intellectual property. And this has to do with copyright infringement. And Section 501 and Section 506 covers that. Okay, let me get that out the way. Let's go ahead. Well, actually, 501, 506, and 508. Okay. Now, let's get to the heart of it. The state of nonprofits. According to Forbes, 50% of nonprofits will fail within the first 12 months of getting started. Added to that, since January 20th of 2025, the nonprofit sector has lost at least 19,000 plus full-time jobs, with 3,000 plus occurring in May alone. And these reductions are compounded by inflation, economic uncertainty, which are also striking private contributions as well. Early estimates is that 5 to 10% decline in major contributions and foundation grants in the first quarter of 2025. 5 to 10%. Not only are we getting it from the government reduction in grant funding, but also we're getting it from what we traditionally will rely on. That's private foundations. Those funds are being reduced even more. That's why this class is so important at this particular time. Again, folks, get ready, get your popcorn, get whatever you want to get, because it's going to be a long class. But when you leave here, you're going to be in a position to have the tools necessary to take your nonprofit to the next level, no matter what size it is. Okay, let's start with our mission. And in short, our mission is to provide nonprofits with the tools necessary for them to achieve their vision and their mission. So let's start talking about what are some of those services. First is social entrepreneurship, government procurement, organizational growth, analytical insights, proposal preparation and workshops, program development, community empowerment, strategic planning. So we've been around for at least, the organization itself, the nonprofit, started in 2011, but me as the leader of the organization have over 35 years of experience in leadership in the nonprofit sector. So let's talk a little bit more about us specifically as to what is it that we do as our core specialization. We talked about it earlier. First is program development and capacity building. The next is neighborhood planning and economic development. The third is social entrepreneur models. And finally, national models and best practices are some of the core specialization. Again, you can get this and you can review this once you once class is completed, I'll send it over to you. So let's talk about some of our impacts and highlight it. So up to date, We have provided training, virtual training, like what you're doing right now, to over 3,500 nonprofits, agencies, faith-based community, government agencies, businesses, individuals across 37 states. Again, equipping them leaders with the tools for growth. New nonprofits, we're working with over 500 plus nonprofits and working with them through the process of attaining that 501c3 status. So let's talk about what is the first part of this lesson. Section 1, compliance and steps to starting a nonprofit. What does that encompass? And what do we want as our learning objectives after this class right here? What should you know? You should know what a nonprofit is, what is bylaws, what's a purpose statement, what are articles of incorporation, what's a conflict of interest policy, solicitation requirements, a 1023 application, tax exempt on the state level, employment identification, and the 3 stages of starting a nonprofit. If you are a up and running nonprofit, you're familiar with all this, but if you are a new nonprofit, just to get to the point of starting your nonprofit, you have to be able to have these documents. Again, after we finish talking about this section right here, we're going to go really, really deep to talk about the tools and the strategies and the framework needed to design, fund, and sustain your initiative. And this day and this time, with all the funds being reduced all over the place. So what is a nonprofit? In short, a nonprofit is an organization that reinvests any generated revenue back into their program to maximize impact and to service their community effectively. And the key term is reinvest. Okay, now let's talk about the 3 stages of a nonprofit, and this is critical because a lot of nonprofits think you can get started and jump to the money, but there are steps that you must go through. And even the nonprofits that are here, the advanced nonprofits, even some things that you can learn about the 3 steps when we get to the advanced stage of a nonprofit. So let's go to stage 1. Stage 1, again, is when we talked about earlier. I said this is going to be all of the legal compliance and things of that nature to get your nonprofit started. Here, it includes you having to put together bylaws. Bylaws is what, it's like if you drop the by, you have laws. Bylaws are law. Bylaws are the laws to your organization. Then you have to put together your articles of incorporation, your conflict of interest policy, your state exemption. You have to get your federal ID number in order to start your nonprofit as a nonprofit. Then you have to actually do the application itself, which is the to complete the 501c3 application online. So you actually have to do that in order to get your nonprofit started. That's the last step. Once you got your documents together, your bylaws, your articles, your conflict of interest policies, your conflict of interest, all of those things like that is what you have to have in place before you actually go to the final step of going to put in an application for your 1023. In other words, the 501c3 application. Stage 2. Stage 2, once you've gotten that together, stage 2 is to begin to talk about your intermediate, your human well, actually, stage 2 is the intermediate step. And in the intermediate step, you want to start to talk about your human resource development, your board training, your staff needs, your policies and procedures. Stage 3. This is the stage of when you reach your highest level of maturity as an organization. Here, you're going to have your organizational operation together, your program development, your funding development, your growing the nonprofit, your financial management system, your marketing, your public relationship, and your online presence and visibility. It's so important in these days that you have an online presence through any of the different social media. But this is stage 3. This is the final stage when you're really ready to bring in your grants and things of that nature. Okay, now we've gotten that out the way. Now let's dive into the second part of the presentation, when we really dive into providing you with the tools necessary to be sustainable and to survive in this time of downsizing funding for nonprofits around the country. So in this section, we talk about from vision to reality, mastering grant and organizational development. So let's break down what we hope you'll learn from this section T right here. First of all, this section will equip participants with the tools, strategies, and framework needed to design, fund, and sustain your high-impact initiative. What are we going to be talking about? We're going to be talking about developing a business plan, crafting a winnable project description, your research tools for grant seekers. That is, where do you go to find the money? What are the different sites that you can go to actually identify where all that money is? Increasing organizational capacity. No matter what size you are now, every organization can be increased. Can increase their capacity. As a matter of fact, given the current climate with all of the federal programs being cut and removing the safety net, every organization, in order to serve this new population of people that's going to need help, is going to have to increase their organizational capacity. And then the proposal process. I mean, what is the process that you have to go through in order to get that grant eventually to submit it? This is important. Creating an organizational infrastructure and financial sustainability. And then after that, designing an evaluation framework and preparing for your current and future, preparing for current and future crisis. I can see there's a lot of misspelling going on in here, but I grabbed the wrong document, but I think you're going to get the essence of it. So let's move forward. So what do funders look for when they consider whether or not they are going to fund you? Well, they look for, one of the things they look for, well, let's talk about all of them. They look for, what is your sustainable financial model? What is your sustainable financial model? We're going to talk a lot about that as we move forward in this presentation. How is your organization different than another nonprofit? What hard and soft data supports your position of your need and your problem statement? What are your measurement tools? Why are you starting? What's your reason for starting a nonprofit? What's your value? Networks, partnership, and collaboration is what they look for. accounting practices. In all, they look for a proposal that's plausible, feasible, sustainable, sellable, and is fundable. Folks, no matter where you at in your nonprofit, don't be discouraged about all this information. Just sit back, take in what you can. And again, if you stay through the whole class, we'll send this information out to you. Now, what are the core components of a strong organization? Well, as a strong organization, you should know your values. That is, what is it that you believe? In addition to that, you should know your mission. Your mission talks about why we exist. And notice that's a long term. Then you should be able to know what is our vision. And your vision talks about where are we going at. Again, this is medium term, midterm, as opposed to your long term. So this is your midterm goals and objective. And your short-term objective is to understand what strategies are you going to use. That is, how will you get to where you need to get to? And then finally, your tactics. What will you do in order to get there? All of this is going to be covered in this upcoming presentation. So I'm going to visualize it now, and now we're going to go into the nuts and the bolts of what it looks like. Folks, we got a lot of information that we're going to cover. Sit back, get your popcorn, let's get busy. So let's start with most people want to know the different types of grants. So you have your unrestricted grants, and these grants are for general support. You have your program and your project grants. Then you have your seed money grants. Seed money can be money if you're just getting started to bring that executive director on board. Then you have your capital grants. And your capital grants is for construction and renovation. Then you have empowerment grants. Also, along this list of things, you have what's known as challenge grants or matching grants. Sometimes a grant writer will challenge you. If you ask for 100,000 and they say we'll give you 80, but we challenge you to go and find that grant from somebody else. And then of course you can never forget this in-kind support or pro bono work. So there are different types of grantors. So let's talk about the different types of grantors. First, that's the individual. The individual is by far the segment that gives the most money to your nonprofit. And then under that, you have your family and your community foundation. A family foundation is any foundation where there's a biologically connection, like Obama Foundation, the Clinton Foundation, those type of foundations where it's the family that runs it. The Ford Foundation, the Gates Foundation, and well, the Gates Foundation might not be a family foundation, it might be. And community foundation. Well, community foundation is like, for example, you have here in Tampa, Hillsborough County, you have the Hillsborough County component that gives grants out to other nonprofits. And that's only if you live in Hillsborough County. That's why it's called community. If you're in New York, it might be New York. If you're in Chicago, it might be Chicago. But community means it's restricted to a specific community. And then you have what's known as corporate foundation, Bank of America, you name it, all around. Let me see, Popeyes, I can't even think. Amazon, and all of those are all corporate foundation. Then you got federated found funds. That's like the United Way. And finally, you have government funds. Excuse me. By far the hardest source of funding is trying to get funds from the federal government. It's the hardest. And it's going to be even harder to get. But also note, for every grantor, there are advantages and disadvantages. I'm not going to go over all of that because when you get this presentation, you can see what is the advantages and the disadvantages of an individual, a corporate, etc. Okay, now let's talk about the money. Where is it and how do you get to where the money is? Let me share this with you. This is very, very, very important. Only 2% of entities that give money put it on Google, where so you can just go to Google to get it, right? The vast majority of monies and grants, and let me tell you, that's over 10, 15, 20,000 different types of funders that fund throughout the United States. And we're going to talk about, we talked earlier about who those funders are, foundation, corporation, government. But no matter what the case is, the Foundation Center, for example, is a very good source to go after funding. They house the Foundation Center house all of these grants, like 10, 15, 20,000 foundation corporations, all these people that give money. It's like a clearinghouse. You go to the Foundation Center, and this is where you can put in, like, for example, youth programs, Chicago, for 20,000. And they give you everybody that's giving money in that respect. You won't find this information on the regular Google search. I like the Foundation Center the best. Then you got artificial intelligence. You can use grants.gov and GrantStation. I use GrantStation also. But you can also go to the Federal Register. But here's some key things that's important when you're going for a grant. 4 steps if you want to get that grant. Insider information. You write for the grant, make sure you follow the guidelines. Read all of the guidelines. You'll be surprised at folks that don't read everything in the guideline as to what the funder is looking for. Next, talk to a person that received the grant in the past. And you can get that information, for example, from Grant Foundation. Talk to a person that was a reviewer of a grant, that was on the team that reviewed and gave out the grant. And finally, contact the program officer. So you can have a conversation with them and say, look, we know you are having RFP out. Now RFP is a request for proposal. That's how funders solicit you to come in and give you money to carry out their vision. And that person, and you can share with that person, for example, here's what we plan to do with our program, and that person can tell you whether or not it fits what they're looking for. So these 4 key ways of steps that you need to take. Write for the application, read it. Talk to a person that was a past grantee and a past person that reviewed and awarded grant. And you can get all that information from the Foundation Center. Go to the Foundation Center, you click, for example, Bank of America. Hey, Bank of America, who was the grantee that received your money last year? Who was the team that was responsible for awarding the grant? Get that information, insider information. If I spend a lot of time on something, that means you really want to pay attention. You really want to pay attention. You want to up your game in order to be successful in going after grants. And I know it because I've been part of over $60 million in different grants, man, that I was a part of. Either I wrote the grant or I gave ideas pertaining to the grant for my footprint or my fingerprints is all over it. And so you learn a lot in being into this sector for so long. And I'm talking, I've been in this game for over 35 years. We start off with the problem. The first major part of the grant is the problem. If there is no problem, there is no money. Now, the problem can be classified as a problem statement or as a need assessment. But here's some critical things, and there are quite a few things that encompass a good statement of the problem. But let's talk about some key things that I want you to keep in mind. First of all, it should be supported with evidence as statistical facts, expert views, and trends. You should have this data ready. We call it quantitative and qualitative data, ready to support what it is that you say that's going to be done. You should be able to establish the importance and significance of the problem. What would happen if the problem is not solved? You should demonstrate that your problem is feasible and manageable to solve. And the other thing that's very important is that you should be able to demonstrate the need for the methodology, that is, the activities and the timetables. And most importantly, you should have a good understanding how to gather the research and data necessary to support your state of the problem. And this is called quantitative and qualitative research. Here we go. Quantitative and qualitative research are two fundamental approaches to gathering and analyzing data. That's how we'll be able to show what the problem is. Now, in terms of qualitative research, this approach is ideal for understanding why people behave in a certain way or how they perceive a particular topic. Quantitative research, on the other hand, is useful for answering questions like how much and how often. Okay, now that we've gotten that out the way, let's get down to the program development from concept to completion. Did I tell you now? It's going to be a lot of information that we cover tonight, but please stay with us, stay with us, stay with us. I guarantee you will leave like on cloud nine. Okay, so when we begin the process of actually putting together the proposal, first we start with the idea of it all. Some people call it conceptualization. And what is that process? Well, first we have to identify what is the purpose? Why do we exist? And what do we do? For example, if you are a mother that lost a child to street violence, and your purpose for existing is to stop the senseless killing. So we start with purpose. Why are you doing what you do? Once you are able to establish your purpose, now we begin to go to, okay, that being the case, what is your vision as to how do you change it all? For example, your vision might be so that no other child will be killed senselessly. And once you identify that, and then we move to your mission. How do you plan to do it? That is, describe what the group is doing to what the group is going to do, and why it's going to do what it's going to do. Okay, let's get deep into this thing called conceptualization or concepts. Now, once you've established that, then we move to your goal. A goal is a broad statement of what you wish to accomplish. A goal is usually about the final impact or outcome that you wish to bring about. A strategy now. A strategy is a plan of action, method, process, or specific step taken to accomplish the goal. Stay with me, y'all. Objective. Your objective specifically specify the outcome of your project and the end products. They are tangible. Your objectives should be specific, immediate, measurable, practical, logical, and it should be able to be evaluated. There are different types of objectives: behavioral, performance, process, and product. Don't worry if you don't get all this. You will get a copy of this, but please stay. This is going to get intense. This is going to get serious. Okay, now that we gotten all that out the way, now we need to move to actually putting together the program itself. We talk about the ideology behind it: goals, objective, vision, mission. Now let's talk about how do we take that and put it to paper. The method section describes your project activities in detail, indicating how your objectives will be accomplished. So some of the things that should be included is that your purpose. We talked about that earlier. The key qualities associated with this section, it should be clear and detailed, feasible and practical, and it should align with your goals. Another key component is that it should have another key component is strategies for accomplishing your objective. What strategies are you going to use? A breakdown of activities, each activity. Then you need to have a conversation about your staff. And this is called staffing and organizational capacity. Who do you need on board? What are their qualifications? And then finally, or not finally, but next, your facilities, equipment, and materials. Where do you plan to be housed at? What equipment do you plan to have, and what materials are you going to use? And then, of course, your next is program administration and coordination. How is the program going to be administered, and how is it going to be coordinated? Next up is target population and monitoring. That is, target population and community involvement. How is that going to take place? Who's your target population? And how do you plan to involve the community? Here's another one: data collection and performance. That's important. Data, and performance. For example, you have to identify your tracking mechanism, be it surveys, interviews, etc., or your online reporting and ethical compliance measures. Okay, now I hope everybody has not gone to sleep. I told you. Now, let's start to get the proposal together. Now, the first part of the proposal is going to be called what's known as the introduction. The introduction is simply a credibility statement that describes your professional and organizational qualities and establish the significance of your idea. Conclusion. So you got the proposal together. Now you have the conclusion. So every proposal should have a conclusion, a paragraph or two. Now this is a good place where you can call attention to the preacher after the grant is completed. Also, very critical is in this particular part of the grant proposal, don't be afraid at this stage to use a bit of emotional to consolidate the person that's reading that grant. If you're the mother that lost that child in the streets, here's where you say, I'm fighting this grant. Not because I want to, but out of a pain of losing a child so young, with so senseless violence. And I do what I do not out of pleasure, but out of need. Anyway, you see how you get emotional, okay? That's very important. That can be different between your grant and another grant that's doing the same thing. Okay, let's continue. All right. Now, making sure you get that information out, the simulation, making sure you get that information out. And you can do it in so many different ways. And I just mentioned a couple ways here. You can get it out by way of your project newsletter, your conference and seminars, social media, press release. Also, you can get it out by way of pamphlets, websites. This information, make sure that your information is getting out there and people are seeing what you're doing and know who you are. Okay, the appendix. This is the last part of the grant proposal. Here's where you're gonna put your organizational information, your project support documents, your background information, your technical and data resources, your additional and any additional communication chips that you might want to use. Appearance is very, very important. So make sure you're following the guidelines as they relate to numbering, hitting. All of this is going to be in the document guidelines when you go for that grant. That's why it's important to read that grant, because it's going to tell you should you use bold letters, number, what type should you use in terms of time Roman or whatever. They're going to tell you all that. So you definitely want to make sure that you read the guidelines. And this is rather more about the appearance of the grant, editing, and all that good stuff. Okay. We know what the program looks like. We know how we're going to deliver those services. But how are we going to prove what success looks like? And that's called evaluation. This is probably one of the most critical components to this workshop. Being able to show what success looks like. Being able to show the pipeline of how you plan to get to your vision to actually implement the program and providing the benefits and the results that you articulated in your proposal. Okay, progress evaluation. Well, the purpose of a project evaluation is to measure project success, ensure accountability, and to identify improvements. Well, what are some of the questions that might come up when we're talking about evaluations? For example, what are your objectives achieved? You know, we got goals and objectives. What are they achieved? How effective was resource utilized? That's so very important. How do you use the resource that you got? And what impact did the project have on the people that was intended to be serviced? Second part of that is data collection. And we talked earlier about that quantitative data. That quantitative data, remember, it talks about surveys, matrix, attendance, anything that you can show the data for what you're doing. For example, if you're doing a program, you want to have attendance sheets to show that people attended your program. Quantitative data. This is when you're gathering that subjective data from people as to what a person thinks about something. This is when you do your focus groups, your interviews, and your testimony. And then finally, not finally, but next, your performance indicators. And it's two types, your outputs, and this is workshop, participants trained, etc. Outcomes, that's the second part of your indicator, and this includes behavioral changes, knowledge improvement, etc. Folks, stay with me, guaranteed. This is getting serious. This is getting serious. This is what we call a comprehensive, holistic approach to funding development and organizational development. That's why individuals that have been successful in graduating from college and university and getting that degree in grant development, when they come to my class, they say, this is a whole new perspective. That the class didn't touch 1% of what I was talking about. But anyway, let's keep on going, folks. I'm loving this. Okay, then next we're going to talk about data analysts and reporting. And then talking about data analysts, reporting, as really two key components to being able to support your program evaluation. And reporting can be like written reports, presentation, whatever the case might be. And data analysts what are the statistical tools that you use in order to arrive at the conclusion that you arrive at. And then next on is continual improvement. Talk about how you plan to continue to improve, like finding utilization, finding utilization, that is adjust strategies and activities, constantly going in and improving what you're doing. Talk about future plans, and then talk about your evaluation budget. So there are three types of evaluations that is used today. The first type is called a goal-based evaluation. Well, a goal-based evaluation evaluating the extent to which the programs are meeting the predetermined goals and objectives. It includes this, as you can see the graphic that's in front of you, it includes your goals and objectives at the top, and then it includes your process and activities at the bottom, and your outcomes as well at the bottom. So this is when you're looking at an old organization that's been around. They have to reassess as to are we still focused on what we said we was going to do 20 years ago, or have we changed? And do we need to reevaluate it? Do we need to change? Do we need to add? The next type of evaluation tool that you can use is known as a logic model. Well, a logic model is an outcome-based evaluation. Is what was the benefits, and how was the benefit brought into play? This is when you begin to talk about the starting with the goal, whatever your goal is. In this case, the goal of this particular program is to reduce the high risk among teenagers, at-risk girls between the ages of 10 and 14. And they break it up into several categories. The first part of this graphic deals with process objective. What is the process objective? That is what it goes to, that goes to the what. In this case, they want to provide a program for teenage pregnancy education. Next is activities. Activities deal with how you plan to do it. And here you see they plan to provide educational groups for 12 weeks for 100 girls. And then the next category is the responsible parties, or the who. Here they talk about this group called the EFG will be the group that's responsible for everything. And then we talk about the expected outcome. The expected outcome is the why. Here, we say that our outcomes will include 80% of girls report increased knowledge of session content. That is, 80% will have a knowledge of what the session was all about. And then the next column is indicate measurable outcomes. This is the evidence. That is, we need to do pre and post knowledge test scores. This is one element that you can test. There's so many different evidence techniques that you can use. And then finally, not finally, but next to that is data source. That is, where can we go to find this information, or this survey, and this other information that you say support what you say? And you have a lock files. Here's the file with all of the sign-in sheet, etc. And then finally, a measurement of time. You have to talk about the when. For example, from beginning to end. Like for the first 6 weeks, we're doing this. Second, we're going to be doing this, and all the way to the end of the year. Okay, let's keep on going. Now we got that. We got the logic model here. We got the goal-based evaluation here. Now let's go for the final type of tools for evaluation. And it's called a process-based evaluation, or a theory of change. Well, a process-based evaluation are geared to fully understand how a program works. How does it produce the results it produces? And primary 3 categories. First is your community problem need. This is when you begin to talk about what is that problem. In this case, they say children reading below grade level. Children are reading below grade level in grade 3. What do you plan to do? That's called your intervention. Again, it begins to top of the process. Well, we plan to individualize children 3 times a week for 20 minutes. That's what you plan to intervene. That's what you plan to do. Then your intended outcome. Not the by chance outcome, but your intended outcome. In this case, students are able to read at grade level. So you can see we're talking about a process approach. Okay, that being the case, now we can go now. Oops, no, we can't. Now, let's talk about the organization capacity to be able to manage the grant. So the organizational capacity, we're talking about the why, the who, the what, the how, and the how much. And an organizational framework includes purpose, the identity, the programs and objectives, your implementation strategy, and your financials. Infrastructure elements that you should have, and we'll talk a little bit more about this later, is that you should have together your policies and procedures and your staffing, your funding, sustainability or stability, your financial control, and your SWOT analogy. Needless to say that funders are looking for a 5-year strategic plan, among other things. That includes your goals, your strategies, your objectives, your tactics, your operational methods, and your budget. A SWOT analogy. Analyst is a planning tool used to evaluate an organizational strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats involved in projects or a business venture. Normally, your SWOT analysis will come before your strategic plan, because your SWOT analysis is going to tell you everything that's good and bad and ugly and pretty, all combined together. Again, it's going to break down your strengths, your weaknesses, your threats, and your opportunities. Now, we've covered a lot of information. Do not be afraid. You don't have to be at this level of your organization all the time. But I'm giving you this information as to what it's going to look like when you get to where you need to be at. So don't leave. Stay here. It's important that you get this information, because right now we are in troubled times, unlike any time before. And if you're doing anything relevant to trying to help those in the safety net, this is the time to up your game, to bring your ace game, as we say. I always say it, and you can Google it, or you can put it in artificial intelligence, that we need to have a new school of moving and a new generation mindset. And that's what this is. We need to break out of the mold of what used to be and change the paradigm. And that's what we're doing tonight. Okay, folks, let's keep on going. Sorry about that. So we talked about stage 3 earlier, but this is the final stage of your organization. Your organization should have a business plan, an operational plan, financial management, fundraising, so safety and risk management, marketing and branding, and partnership and collaborative. This is stage 3. I know we talked about stage 3 earlier. There was this different version, but this is the version of professionalism. Okay, funding. Okay, how you gonna get sustainability? How you plan to get the money? What is your strategy to get the money? This is important, y'all. That's why I want you to stay. You have to save the last to the best in order to get people to stay. I know most of you probably have got your second cup of coffee. Some of you have already jumped out the window because there's too much information. Please, for those of you that are sane enough to stay, let's get through this. Funding. Let's talk about funding is very important. But what most funders want to know is that what happens after this grant? Are you going to come back to us for grant every year? Or what is your financial strategy on sustainability for your nonprofit? This is where you begin to ask the question, what would be necessary to keep the program going? And you need to identify potential resources and how you plan to secure those resources. Okay, let's get busy. I call this social entrepreneurship. Social entrepreneurship is the ability to fund the future of a nonprofit through a combination of earned income, charitable contributions, and public sector subsidies. The earned income is used to pursue social objectives by simultaneously seeking both financial and social return on investment. That was a lot of information. In other words, diversify. Make sure you have different sources of funding that's coming in. Let's talk about some of the key features of this school authority. First, dual purposes. Achieve both financial stability and positive social impact. Second, earned income strategy. Nonprofit generated revenue through goods and services that align with their mission. Let me say it again. Earned income strategies. Nonprofits generate revenue with goods and services that align with their mission. Number 3, diversify funding sources. Combine public subsidies and charitable contributions to reduce reliance on one source. Impact measurements. Balance financial return with measurable social outcome. This approach transforms nonprofits into innovative problem solvers that not only serve their communities, but also remain relevant in challenging financial landscape. Challenging financial landscape. Got that messed up. As you can see, I'm getting messed up. It's been long. Now let's get into the budget. So, folks, we're coming near to the end. Just stand by. We're going to talk about the budget. Then we're going to talk about artificial intelligence. And then we're going to end it and get some input from you as to what are your takeaways from today's class. Okay, let's finish up with the budget. Whoa, we almost there, y'all. Come on, stay here. Got to know all this information. Now we got to know, well, how do we put together a budget in order to make sure that we doing what we need to do. Okay, so let's get there a cup of coffee. You are. Proposal. Lighten the budget. A budget is more than just a statement of a proposed expenditure, a proposal expenditures. It's an alternate way of expressing your project. The 3 types of costs involved is direct costs, indirect costs. Well, this is some of them. This is 2 of the types that's costs that's involved: direct costs, indirect costs, cost sharing, and in kind. All of these are different parts of the budget. Again, when you get this presentation, then you'll be able to go through all this information and begin to digest all this information. So, we almost finished. Folks, this is probably one of the most important segments of this presentation, because there's a whole new world, not only because of the loss in funding, but also because of artificial intelligence. How can we use artificial intelligence to improve the quality of work in nonprofits? So let's break down. Well, first, this is what artificial intelligence can do. It can do funding and donor engagement. It can use predictable analytics. It can use personalized communication. It can use automating routine tasks like data entry and scheduling, volunteer coordination. Artificial intelligence can do all of that plus. It can do data analysis and insight, impact measurement, trending forecasts, content creation, including grant writing, marketing materials. It can enhance your program delivery using chat bots. And I use chat bots all the time. I use Gemini. I use Claude. I use, I better notice all the money I'm paying for all these different chat bots. Did I say Copilot? Claude. I know there's two other ones that I'm using, but trust me, it'll make your life way, way better. Okay, then language translation. It can break down the language barrier. People are trying to call you, and you're working in diverse communities. It can do that for you. Okay. Whoa, we're here. We're final. We're finished, folks. Okay. So, folks, your next step in terms of you want to take this grant writing class. And let me tell you something. Grant writers make anywhere from $30 an hour to $400 an hour, depending upon the size of a grant. Or if you're doing a situation where you're getting paid not by the hour, but for creating a project, you can charge anywhere from $5,000 on up. You can make a lot of money, and this can be a side hustle for you as well.